With me to discuss this particular issue as well as a range of other matters, the MP for Castries South. He's also the SLP spokesperson on tourism, industry and commerce. Dr. Ernest Hilaire, welcome to the program, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Tim, and Happy New Year to you.
Same to you, sir.
First time coming on the program for the year, so best wishes to you.
Same to you. The situation over in Venezuela, your take?
Well, I think in many ways, Ulbuse captured the sentiments of the St. Lucia Labour Party on this matter, and the communique issued by CARICOM is consistent with the thinking of the St. Lucia Labour Party on this matter. You would recall last week at a press conference, we were asked about the present government position on Venezuela, and we denounced the position taken by the government on Venezuela. And I think at this week's press conference, Honorable Alva Baptiste, who's our spokesperson on international affairs, was asked, and he brilliantly described the government's position as one of multiple personalities disorder. And I think the point he was making, which is so true, when you read the CARICOM communique, which was a consensus document, which we believe is a progressive document, it is direct contradiction to the position that the government that St. Lucia took within the Lima Group. In the Lima Group, we virtually said we were not recognizing Maduro. We virtually condemned his government. We virtually supported the position taken by the United States. And we thought that was a terrible position for St. Lucia to take. But in the present CARICOM communique, which was a consensus document, which meant that St. Lucia supported it, the direct opposite was a position taken by the government of St. Lucia, and we believe the CARICOM position is a progressive position, and we're supportive of that position.
What I wanted to focus on is what's happening in Venezuela right now. The chaos that is taking place, the fact that you've had over 2 million people leaving the country for economic and political reasons, in some cases because their rights are being abridged and things of that nature.
Well, I won't start off by saying, Timothy, that I don't believe those stories. I'm not saying that. I have learned both as a student of international politics, as a practitioner in international diplomacy, that sometimes you have to tread carefully when you hear some of those stories. And we remember the invasion of, Saddam Hussein and the invasion of Iraq and all the chemical warfares, and they had undisputed evidence about it, which turned out to be false. You've heard so many stories when countries want to justify their position and they're powerful and they have the capacity. A lot of things can be said and a lot of things can be distributed. I prefer to go by the CARICOM assessment of what is happening. I think everybody agrees that there is a conflict in Venezuela. There is a conflict between the opposition forces and the government. We can all agree that there is a dispute over the elections and whether or not it was free, fair elections. And we must also agree that it's a very volatile situation, one which can erupt and become uncontrollable. And I think if we just accept those three basic points as features of what's happening in Guyana, without whether it's 2 million people leaving, whether
in Venezuela,
whether 500 people have been killed, let's not go into all those dramatic representations. We agree there is a situation in Venezuela, and according to the CARICOM communique, we respect the sovereignty of countries, we respect the right of non-interference in the domestic affairs of countries, and we call on all parties to resolve it in a very peaceful and democratic way. And CARICOM goes further. CARICOM, as they've done in other situations, offers the good offices of CARICOM to be able to speak to both parties in Venezuela and ensure that the matter does not get out of control and does not get any worse than what it is, whatever it is right now.
Are we just paying lip service to those issues when, for example, we say, and I'm quoting Ulbuse there, that independent countries do exercise the principle of respect for the sovereignty of countries? How much more harm or damage you think should be permitted to impact the citizenry of any country before there is some kind of intervention?
But you see, in many ways, that's why the United Nations was formed. And that's why you have regional bodies like CARICOM. And, even in South America, where Venezuela lies, you have, regional bodies, and you have the OAS. because you really do not want to have countries deciding among themselves when to go and intervene in another country. Once you open that door in international politics, you allow for certain countries to impose their will on other countries. And you do not want that scenario. You want to know that if there is a situation in a country, there's a hemispheric or international gathering that can make assessments and see how they can try to influence the situation to stop any situation that affects human beings, their livelihood, their conditions of living, their human rights, whatnot. So one has to always be cautious about encouraging countries to decide, I don't like what's happening in this country, I judge it to be bad, and therefore I have a right to intervene in it.
But from a personal standpoint, if I'm being attacked vociferously and somebody has to intervene on my behalf, I do not want for there to be irreparable damage before that intervention.
But it's the reason why you have law and order, because, Tim, you have law and order to ensure there is not anarchy and just total social unrest, and take it at law and order at a domestic level, take it to the national level now and regional level. If you just allow there to be no law and order, no courts to decide who's right, who's wrong, then people can just take justice into their own hands, or revenge, either way, and there can be carnage, there can be, social anarchy, like I said. So you have law and order that says precisely how matters are dealt with. Relations between states are no different as to relations between individuals in a country. Countries just cannot decide, I don't like what's happening in this country, so I'm going to send in my F-16 bombers and just do what I want. There has to be clear established international law and principles that say how it is we deal with situations when they arise. And for example, look at the International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court. When there have been instances of, crimes against humanity, there have been persons arrested in different parts of the world and brought to justice.
But the damage have been done long after that. I mean, take for example Sarajevo, what happened in Sarajevo, and what happened in some other countries.
But if you can prevent those things from happening, I guess you would prevent crime at the local level too, in the relations between individuals. When somebody commits a crime, they go to the courts and then they go to jail.
But do you think the situation is further complicated when, for example, for their own benefit, certain countries would take a position primarily because they have a vested interest in, for example, Maduro steering in. Your Iran, your Syria, your Russia, compared to the position taken by Canada, the European Union, and the United States?
All countries promote their national interests. Trust me, all countries do. Ironically, the countries with the greatest conscience in international politics are the smaller countries, because we're not powerful enough to try to cause international events to be in our benefit. So we want a world order that is stable, that is very sensitive, that is very considerate.
That causes us to be very coward, man.
Well, not coward. We don't have the capacity. I don't know that we can go and help invade Venezuela. We can't. We are takers. We're not shapers of international politics, but we are shapers of St. Lucia.
And your interest on this program this afternoon is to focus on a range of local issues. The motion of no confidence in Prime Minister Mr. Alan Shastney. Why does the SLP see this as a necessity? Is it yet another ploy in its armory that it is utilizing?
Well, I wouldn't say a ploy. I think, and I'm sure many of your listeners will agree, that the government, after 2.5 years, has to be subjected to a review of how it has performed. This government in particular, since the elections of June 6, 2016, has been very disappointing in the eyes of many St. Lucians. It's a government that has pursued a program that one can describe as vindictive in many ways, a program that we believe has left out many of St. Lucians. We believe it's a government that has promoted the interests of friends, families, and foreigners over that of locals in St. Lucia. And we can go across the entire range of sectors in St. Lucia and to make our case that this government has not been in the best interest of St. Lucia. And we want to focus particularly on the performance of the Prime Minister. He led the charge in the last election campaign. He leads this government. government. He's been the face champion in a lot of what his government is doing. And we're saying that he's broken his many promises to the people of St. Lucia. The way he has led this government, the way he has performed, St. Lucians have demonstrated through the first march we had and the second march in September last year, unprecedented in the history of St. Lucia for government within 2 years of being in power, have had to subject themselves to some massive public outpouring of anguish and dissatisfaction with its performance. So the motion of no confidence in the Prime Minister is an opportunity for us, the opposition, to present in summation our assessment of what has happened in this country in the last 2.5 years, and to say to the people of St. Lucia that the Prime Minister is no longer fit to continue to lead the government of St. Lucia.
We continue about collective responsibility. Why not file a motion of no confidence in the government primarily, instead of just one individual, the Prime Minister, Mr. Alan Chancellor?
Well, I mean, you could have decided to do that, to have a motion of no confidence in the government itself, and have everybody collectively been held responsible. But we believe the issue is not just about the government; it's about the leadership that has been shown to this country. Not just the government, the leadership of Alan Chancellor in particular. This is unprecedented in St. Lucia. And when you listen on Tuesday,
what is unprecedented?
The style of leadership, the quality of leadership, the disposition of the leadership. And I tell you, next week, Tuesday, team, I want you to listen to the debate. I want you to listen. I have been putting together my notes for the debate, and I probably will need 3 hours just to focus on the Prime Minister and what he has done in the last 2.5 years, because there's a catalogue of actions. There is a catalogue of, faults that have been manifested in the last 2.5 years that is simply shocking.
But that's not unprecedented in terms of you cataloguing the so-called wrongs and ills of the government.
But it's the extensive nature of the catalogue.
Any opposition party, the United Workers' Party, if it was in opposition right now, if the United Workers' Party was in opposition, it would have been in a position to do the same of the St. Lucia Labour Party if it was in government. So, if for whatever reason the SLP is successful in filing his motion against the Prime Minister, who within the United Workers' Party camp you think should take over the reins as Prime Minister of St. Lucia?
No, Tim, you're starting to get troublesome now, Tim.
All right, so somebody posted something on Facebook saying, be respectful to Dr. Hilaire.
No, that's not disrespectful. That's been troublesome.
No, I'm not being troublesome. Just asking a pointed question to you, sir.
No, it's a very good question, Tim. It's a very good question. I mean, whoever can command the majority of support of the members of Parliament.
But he did. But Mr. Alan Chancellor did.
But he commanded it. He does now, and as on Tuesday, we'll know if he still does. And that's a very important point, Tim. So let's go to that one. I'll come back to your first question. If on Tuesday, at the end of the debate, he continues to hold the command the support of the majority of members in Parliament, his colleagues in there on his side will be saying to the people of St. Lucia, despite all what the opposition would have said about Alan Chancellor, we believe he's still the best within us, and he's still the best for St. Lucia. They will now have made a very loud and clear statement that we agree with what Alan Chancellor is doing. So the member for Ancillary Canaries will be saying to the people of Canaries, no matter what you'll have said to me, I believe in Alan Chancellor, and I still want him to continue to do what he's doing. The member for Soufrière-Fosséjac will be saying to the people of Soufrière-Fosséjac, I believe in Alan Chancellor. He's right. The member for Saltibus.
I get your point.
Exactly. So they will now have to stand up collectively, individually and collectively, say to the people of St. Lucia, I believe in Alan Chancellor, and I believe whatever he does in this country, he's right. That's what they'll be doing.
All right, the other question. Who within, if not Alan Chancellor, who should be Prime Minister of St. Lucia within the United Workers' Party?
The procedure will be for the United Workers' Party among themselves the ruling party.
If you can determine that he's not suitable to be the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, you also can advise the elected MPs on the government side, and even the nation, who you believe should replace Mr. Alan Chancellor
from among the UWPs?
Yeah.
From among the UWPs. Because I believe Philip JPI should be the best person to lead St. Lucia right now.
But among the UWPs?
But among the UWPs, trust me, there are people you know, Tim, there are people that must be. If you really think about it,
name your favorite individual.
Oh, no, but I to me, Honorable, you know, I'm sure Honorable Stevenson King will be a better Prime Minister than Alan Shastri. I'm sure Estefan.
I think what you're saying is that what you're looking forward to is a punching bag. And Mr. Alan Shastri is not the SLP's punching bag. That's what it amounts to. What say you to that?
No, what I am saying is that Alan Shastri, as Prime Minister of this country, has failed us. And we're going to be making a case on Tuesday to the people of St. Lucia that this is exactly what has happened in this country for the last 2.5 years. And we're presenting it to Parliament for his colleagues that have him there as Prime Minister because they support him to be able to say, after listening to the case made by the opposition, we continue to have support in Alan Shastri. We support what he's doing, and we want him to continue. It's not about a punching bag. It's about them making a public declaration that they want Alan Shastri to continue to treat St. Lucians the way he has treated them. That is what is going to happen.
Do you think opposition MPs should also have free rein to determine whether they should support this motion of no confidence or not?
Yeah, they should. I mean, you know, I believe when you're in Parliament and your constituents elect you, you really have to try to carry the views of your constituents as much as possible, and of course your conscience. And if your conscience drives you to behave in a particular way, and if your party says to you, you have to toe the party lines against your conscience, you should say to your party, I cannot continue because it's against your conscience. So, likewise, the individuals on the other side. And don't believe for one moment, Tim, there are not extraordinary efforts to stop the debater. Can I share with you? That only last night it was confirmed to us that the motion is actually going to be on the order paper for Parliament on Tuesday. Only last night. And I was called this morning to confirm my parliamentary papers Friday. And we know, and I mean there's a lot, and out of due respect for the process between Parliament and the leader of the opposition office, there have been exchanges as to make sure how we can get this in a form which will make it acceptable to Parliament, you know, to be able to make the case that it has to be debated. As to whether it will be debated on Tuesday, I'm still not 100%. I am telling you I'm going to Parliament on Tuesday, half expecting that this motion will not be debated. I am going to Parliament, and I'm saying that to everyone in St. Lucia. I'm going to Parliament half expecting this motion will not be debated. They will find some reason to take it off the order paper. But I'm saying to you, if it's not taken off, we want to present our case to Parliament and to the people of St. Lucia. And I want you to listen to that case. I want you to sit back and listen to the case that we're making, that Alan Shastri, based on his stewardship of the last 2.5 years, is not worthy to continue to serve as Prime Minister of St. Lucia.
And then you leave it to the people of St. Lucia to decide.
Well, his colleagues, because his party is in power, they command a majority, and for them. But for sure, if, you know, 3 of them, and we hope it happens, say to us, at least 3 of them, that look, we have no confidence, we would wish to come up with a new person, we will support it.
Previous SLP administrations, you would have played a role, whether it's as a strategist, whether it's as a PS, attaché to the Prime Minister, Dr. Kenny Anthony, and so on. You never ever once considered that there should have been a motion of no confidence in Dr. Kenny Anthony for one reason or the other between 1997 and when he left office?
Well, I mean, it's for the opposition to move motions of no confidence in the Prime Minister or in the government.
Forget the opposition, because maybe the opposition was too weak at the time, 14-3, 16-1, to even consider
doing that,
filing a motion of no confidence. I'm asking you, you ever considered there's ever a reason to file a motion of no confidence in Dr. Kenny Anthony during that period?
I'll tell you something. There was no time at which I believe that Kenny Anthony had become so bad for St. Lucia that he ought to be replaced as Prime Minister, and there should be a motion of no confidence in him. It does not mean I did not wish.
Even the time of Rochamel.
Yeah, but no? Rick, I call you Rick.
Because
that's a Freudian slip.
No, because that's his thing. When you talk about Rochamel,
I'm still to see what was so wrong with Rochamel.
But I'm just asking.
I'm telling you, because I did not see what was so wrong with Rochamel that Rick in particular made the big deal he did. But he's very silent on the Dahe Mall. He's very silent on Black Bay and on Canals and on many other things. But he made that his major, one of his major issues. And now he's on on Greinberg. But I don't want to discuss Rick. But I can tell you, at no point did I ever believe Kenya Anthony should have been subjected, because I believe largely I supported the agenda of the Labour Party and of the leadership of Kenya Anthony. Personally, there are probably things I would want to see done that was not done. I have a strong favor for youth and sports and community empowerment. I would have liked to see more resources being put into that, whatnot. That's my personal preferences as an individual. But in terms of the Labour Party and its policy, I would have liked to see changes here and there and different focus here and there, but not as, the individual. Just think about it, team, for 1 minute. The government was elected in June 2016. By May 2017, less than 1 year after, this government had committed so many sins. There's a massive demonstration on the street. After May 2017, when you consider the crisis in education, in healthcare, there was a second demonstration, even bigger than the first. And since then, it's just a matter of time before there is another demonstration. Look at what happened. You had a guest here 2 days ago. The Minister for Infrastructure, speaking about road projects, team. Just reflect for one moment with me, team. Uranura International Airport project. The Prime Minister stands in the House, in Parliament, announces the project, $170 million US, which is about 500 million EC dollars, loans from St. Lucia, a loan. The contractor has already been chosen. Think about it. The largest infrastructural project in the history of St. Lucia. The contractor has already been decided. So we come to the House to finalize the arrangements for $100 million loan of the 170. We still have not even settled the other 70 yet. So the loan finance is not yet settled. We told that the drawings will be finished this year. We told that there's no final costing yet, although it's estimated 170 million, but there's already a contractor. Now listen to this. If the Taiwanese had said to you, we're giving you the loan for 100 million US, but it must be a Taiwanese contractor, why couldn't the government say, well, let's have a tender in Taiwan among Taiwanese contractors to make sure we get the best price for our loan, the best use of our loan money? And then the Prime Minister went on to speak about the road repair that Minister King was talking about. And he announced that there's also a contractor for that already. And it happens to be the same contractor. So the first contractor is an expert on terminal and airport construction, but he's also an expert. He's also an expert on road rehabilitation. Now they're saying the comfort for your St. Lucians is that they will use local subcontractors. Now we need to understand this thing. So the person who gets the contract for it, we have no say. There's no tender for our loans. Between the airport and the road rehabilitation, you're talking about almost $750 million in projects. No tendering. You never have that anywhere in the world, team. But be happy, because there'll be some subcontractors that will have tendering. And then we ask us to approve the loan with the terms and conditions. We never see the terms and conditions. So we don't even know what the terms of conditions that would oversee the selection of subcontractors. And Tim, I can go on. I can give
as an opposition, can you challenge this?
Well, for me personally, and it's something which I think we'll discuss internally, we should be able to go to court to ask the courts to have a an assessment of that and whether it is acceptable or not.
But why is it necessary? Why should you take this matter to court?
Why not?
To the court. I'm just asking, why should you have to
because
take
if it is an abuse of administrative proceedings, the government must be taught. Because, Tim, let me put back in context to you. This is the largest project in our history. Almost $700 million worth of loans that the government of St. Lucia is taking that the people must pay. And there's no tendering of those projects.
So is there always suspicion on the part of opposition political parties whenever contracts are granted for projects and there isn't any tendering? Because I'm hearing this very often, whether it's the SLP that's in government or whether it's in opposition.
Tim, it is why the United Nations have international procurement rules. It's why the OAS has, why the World Bank has, why the IMF has, why CBD has, why OECD, why every institution and country in the world have procurement rules. to ensure transparency and accountability and ensure that monies and contracts are handled in a particular way. In Jamaica, actually has a very interesting position, the Contractor General, who actually assesses whether the government followed the right procedure.
But I remember then Prime Minister Dr. Kenny Anthony saying that he would make such an appointment. It would never happen.
Well, maybe that's one thing he should have done. Tim, when last you were the Central Tenders Board in St. Lucia meeting? When last you opened a newspaper or any document and saw advertisements of major infrastructural projects in St. Lucia? The desilting of the Rosa Dam, was that tendered? The road in Roseau to Vanna, was that tendered? The road in Deriso, was that tendered? I mean, I can give you a list. The Pimando $14 million contract to the consultancy, was that tendered?
All I say
John Lockerbie, was that tendered?
If there's something wrong about this particular process, then and the opposition is in a position to challenge it, then the opposition should be challenging it.
But that's the point. So you ask me why go to court, then you're right.
But
we have a right to challenge
must it really go before the courts?
Well, how else would you suggest we challenge?
Is there another process? Because
the other process to bring the people out on the street.
If there isn't another logical process in terms of procedure and so on, and procedure, it means that ethically the government is not doing anything wrong.
Exactly.
Okay?
And maybe legally too, but it's only the courts that can decide if it's legally wrong. You see, maybe I'm a novice in Parliament, but there's no way I know we can challenge it.
If you cannot challenge it at that particular level, it means that the government has not done anything wrong. That's what it says to me.
No. That's what I'm telling you. The courts will decide whether they did something legally wrong. It's the courts. That's why you must go to the courts. Because if we go to Parliament and we move a motion condemning their actions, they have the majority in Parliament. Does that mean they did not do anything wrong? No.
Must every issue be taken before the courts to make that determination?
Only the courts can decide if something is legally wrong.
Because the courts can stymie progress in terms of delays. Because, take for example, following the 2006 general election, you had challenges with regard to the results of that poll. Still pending, still before the courts.
That's not true, it's not still pending.
Has there been a ruling on this particular issue?
Tim, I will finish with all the ruling of the courts and for you to see. Don't listen to that propaganda.
No, I'm just asking. But
there was a determination of the courts, and the guys who filed a case knew they could not go any further with it. But let's not focus on that today.
I don't think this has really been made public.
Well,
this has not been.
But you and I can come in another program and discuss it.
I'm just saying it has not been made public. For whatever reason, it has not been made public.
Well, they say in the converse, they're saying it's still stuck in the courts. But if it's stuck in the courts, why you didn't deal with it? But we'll deal with that another time.
But again, for the record, it has not been made public.
But Tim, the courts is the only competent authority to decide whether something is illegal or not. The courts are the only, and that's why the courts have injunctions, Tim. If the courts did not have the capacity to issue injunctions, what would happen between Landings and Sandals? Government can arbitrarily decide it's just going to compulsory acquire people lands and give it to whoever they want. Tim, if the courts cannot be the competent authority for deciding what is right and wrong in a country, then we doom, That's why the judicial system is so important in a country.
Let's take a break. In the lines right now to take your calls at 4523046. Once again, 4523046. My guest this afternoon on Newsspin, Dr. Ernest Hilaire. He's the MP for Castries South, the SLP spokesperson on tourism as well as commerce. We have a call. Good afternoon, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, Tim. How are you?
I'm okay, sir. Good afternoon.
Robert Williams here, Tim.
Good afternoon.
Tim, I am astounded by the responses of Dr. Ernest Hilaire to your questions. His responses have been predictable and are unsurprising.
So why is he astounded?
To your question about the SLPs not filing a motion of no confidence against Dr. Kenny Anthony, his response again was predictable and expected. He said that the MPs of the UWP would have to explain to their constituents why they support Prime Minister Alan Chasney. Tim, let me tell you, they already do that every single day by working with him and being in the cabinet of ministers, as they all are part of the astounding recovery of St. Lucia in the aftermath of the SLP. And I'd just like you to endure with me for just a bit, Tim.
No, is a question?
No, I'd just like to make a statement because you've made a very long statement. It is inescapable, Tim.
A quick statement, Mr. Norbert Williams, because we have one to the other calls.
It is inescapable, Tim. St. Lucia's progress in the economy, in tourism, in infrastructure investment, all a much-needed shot in the arm for St. Lucia. And it is ludicrous and amazing that the SLP which was unable to deliver on the projects and major infrastructure developments when they were in office, will now want to chastise and condemn this government under Prime Minister Alan Chasney when they failed to deliver on these very same projects. Do record tourism numbers seem like grounds for no confidence? Does the desilting of the John Compton Dam seem like a reason for no confidence when a levy was collected under the SLP, yet no works were done by them? Does the redevelopment of Huanora International Airport seem like grounds for no confidence against Prime Minister Alan Chasney when it was the SLP which failed again to deliver on that project? Does the construction and eventual delivery to the people of St. Lucia of St. Jude Hospital seem like grounds for a vote of no confidence against Prime Minister Alan Chasney when it was the SLP which failed to deliver yet again on this process? Does the cleanup of the mess left behind by the SLP seem like grounds for a vote of no confidence against Alan Chasney? Absolutely not, Tim. I dare say to you, Tim, and to all your listeners, that on Tuesday, January the 29th, 2019, the vote of no confidence will be against the opposition St. Lucia Labour Party. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. You just did there from the administrative attaché to the Prime Minister, Norbert Williams.
No, but
Dr. Hilaire.
First of all, Norbert, of course, I mean, you have to excuse him. He has to perform the duties that he's doing, and he has to try to sound sensible and try to make a case. I mean, starts off by saying he's astounded by my comments, but they're predictable. If something is predictable, then certainly they can't be astounding. I mean, you expect them. But hear what he says. Let's take the Roseau Dam, and I made that point to you. Oh, we did not complete the desilting. Part of the reason is the Labour Party was following the procurement process outlined by CDB for good governance, accountability. Can Norbert Williams tell the people of St. Lucia what was the process followed to select the contractor who's doing the mess down in at the dam? Who selected that contractor? Did CDB not make it very clear to the government of St. Lucia they disapprove of what they were doing, and that CDB money will not be used, and the money that is being used now to desil the dam is actually local money from the levy that was imposed? Isn't that the case? Because people who could not believe that a government in the Caribbean would be behaving in the way in which the government of St. Lucia was behaving. Tell us the process that was followed. He speaks about Huanora International Airport. Is there grounds for that? Tim, the handling of the Huanora International Airport project is grounds not just for a vote of no confidence, but for some people possibly to face legal action. You remember what happened in the last government, the last UDP government. There was a former minister who has been on the air repeatedly saying that a minister in this present government, Guy Joseph, attempted to bribe him. Nobody has sued him. Nobody has denied it. That project was stalled. We have right now in the United States, in Florida, documents that were made public indicating an investigation that is taking place. The Prime Minister promises he would set up a committee to investigate whether there is an investigation. The last time in Parliament, he said he never said that. Right now, a project, $170 million US, that St. Lucian taxpayers will be responsible for, has not even gone out to public tender. And you want to tell me, you want to boast that that is such a glorious achievement because you will start a project, but the Labour Party is at fault because they never started because they were following due process. Tim, I'd rather it go out to tender. I'd rather say to St. Lucians, we know the right process was followed. Nobody knows what's going to happen in that process. How did the contractor get to be selected? What are the procedures that would guide it? But you're saying to me, because I'm building an airport for you or renovating an airport, just keep quiet and accept it. That's progress. Then the dam would be desilted. Forget about the process. Forget about the cost. Just accept it. Don Lockerbie and the Packer Company, $40-odd million. Just keep quiet. You'll get a few playing fields. Forget his $40-something million. Forget about Pimando. To set up a project monitoring and appraisal unit, $13 million for consultants, no tendering. Just keep quiet because we're making progress. In other words, you can do what you want in this country. Squander the people money. Use the people monies inappropriately and just keep quiet because progress is taking place. Let me tell Mr. Williams something. Next week, Tuesday, the in Parliament, we will present a case to the people of St. Lucia and to the parliamentarians. And if they decide that they are happy with what the Prime Minister is doing, they will say so to St. Lucians.
Another call. Good afternoon. Go ahead with your contribution, caller.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, sir.
Tim, I want to divest a little from the present scenario there with Mr. Hilaire concerning this payout of the fuel rebate to minibus drivers. The gentleman that began, the association that began complaining. And for me, deja vu, because I reiterated already what would have happened.
You have a question for Dr. You have a question for Dr. Hilaire?
Not really, Tim.
No, I thought you had a question. No, I just thought you had a question.
Yeah, well, yes. I also have a question.
Oh, you want him to respond to something?
To this whole idea of giving the association this fuel rebate thing, and the process and the fact that the National Council has never conducted an audit concerning these monies, and people have been complaining about these monies. What I honestly thought that the last time the Labour Party would have done something about this whole situation, but then again.
Okay, let's
Mr. Hilaire, tell us something. What are you intending to do about this whole scene with this permits and stuff? Please, I'm misunderstanding it.
Okay, thank you so much for calling, sir.
Well, I mean, Tim, I must admit that I don't have all the information on this. I was listening very intently to what the caller was saying, so I can do some research about it, and find out about it. And I'm sure on a subsequent program or some other time soon, we can say something. It's the first time. I mean, I've heard there are issues relating to the rebate and payments to bus drivers, but I will need to get some more information on it before I can say something.
Good afternoon. Go ahead with your contribution. This is Newsspin on RCI. You're trying to the line. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, Timothy.
Hi, good afternoon, sir.
Happy New Year to you.
Same to you.
A point of clarification. You asked Dr. Hilaire that if the motion of no confidence was passed in the Prime Minister, whom among the UWPs could be Prime Minister? Mm-hmm. But the question really is, Prime Minister. Really is that who can be Prime Minister? Because if the motion passes, it means there are 9 or more people in the House who don't want Mr. Shaston to be Prime Minister, okay, who don't support him.
No, I'm not looking at it. I was not looking at it. No. Mr. Huntley.
Let me finish.
No, hold on. I was not looking at it from that technical point of view. You understand? I'm just saying if you're having a motion of no confidence filed against the Prime Minister, who else? Because you don't want him as an opposition. Who else within the government?
Let me finish. If the motion passes with the support of 9 or more people, it will be up to those 9 or more people who have the majority to decide who among them can be Prime Minister. And not either the UWP clique or the SLP clique, but that 9 or more people to decide whom they want to be Prime Minister.
I get your point, but again, my question still stands to him. But I'll pose a question.
But you understand my point.
No, I understand the point. I understand
because you see, people, it must not be seen that it is up to the UWP or the SLP to appoint a new Prime Minister. It's up to those who have the majority, which will be the 9 or more who vote for the motion.
I understand your point, but I had a guest.
I just thought I would
have a guest. I'm posing the question to him because obviously the SLP does not want Alan Shanson to be PM. So I'm saying, if not Alan, who else within the UWP? That's a question.
I'm saying the question should rightly be who.
No. That's not. No. That's not the question. Thank you.
Well, that was your question. All right.
Thank you. Another call. Good afternoon. This is Newsspin. You're on the air.
Tim, good afternoon. How are you?
Hi, I'm okay, sir. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, good afternoon.
Yeah, let me very briefly, because I notice time. Mr. Hilaire, I know Tim asked you that question during the reign of the St. Lucia Labour Party in office of Anthony. And you said there was nothing that, you did that was wrong. And I know at that time you were preoccupied as St. Lucia High Commissioner to the United Kingdom. And then you were not in St. Lucia at that time.
No, I did make reference to the fact that he served as administrative attaché to the Prime Minister, as well as PS. So Director of Youth and Sports as well. So he was there. He was around.
And then very quick, the other one I want Mr. Hilaire to comment on, although he did in the opening, but there is something that I wanted to say. It was the St. Lucia Labour Party that had one of the best relationships you can ever think of with Hugo Chavez. At that time, it was the Alva Bridge, money was collected, and it was said that who will receive $20 million to build bridge and name Alba. Now, different administration have different position when it comes to diplomatic relationship, and I know Mr. Hilaire knew that well because he was St. Lucia High Commissioner to the UK. If it is the situation in Venezuela, it is not sweet, Mr. Hilaire. You would not want to be in Venezuela, not even want to visit Venezuela. I know that. The situation in Venezuela, if you watch CNN right now, it is totally bad. I know a lot of people, Tim had a guest who said it is not what the TV shows that we can believe. The situation in Venezuela is just bad. It is just not good. And then I believe the government of St. Lucia cannot recognize somebody who just imposed himself as president of a country without the people of Venezuela go to the ballot box and decide who to run that country. I myself totally against the leadership of Maduro. I'm not speaking on behalf of St. Lucians. That is just my opinion as a St. Lucian. So then I don't think the St. Lucia Labour Party are in any position to tell this government to support what is happening in Venezuela, precisely with Maduro as head of state. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. What say you, Anton?
But nobody is telling the government of Central to support what's happening in Venezuela. And I said at the beginning that, we support the CARICOM communique. We said that we've always established what our principles are as it relates to assessing international politics, and that we believe we should encourage all parties in Venezuela to sit and resolve their issues peacefully and without any resort to threats of violence or violence. And it's not a question of supporting what's happening in Venezuela. It's a question of saying that, look, we believe countries should manage their own internal affairs in accordance with democratic principles. So I'm not sure exactly what the caller was saying. But Tim, coming back to the core issue, I think next week, Tuesday, will present an ideal opportunity, and Mr. Williams doesn't have to get too flustered, for us to make a case to Parliament and make a case to the people of St. Lucia as to the stewardship of Alan Chasney over the last 2.5 years, and to very clearly indicate to people why we believe the present Prime Minister is not worthy to continue to be the Prime Minister of this country. And I think we will make a very, very compelling case to the people of St. Lucia next Tuesday and to the Parliament of St. Lucia. When you listen to Mr. Williams, you notice the paucity of his response. His response is, Labour Party had failed in X, Y, and Z, so therefore that makes Alan Chasney justifiable to do the things he did, which really is unbecoming for somebody who's in public policy like himself, public policy formulation. That is not, Labour Party is not on trial next week Tuesday. Labour Party was condemned on June 6, 2016 by the electorate of St. Lucia. We were swept from office. People said, we were not happy with the things that you were doing. We were not satisfied with your delivery. So we are replacing you with somebody who promised us to do X, Y, and Z. And we are saying, after 2.5 years, those promises have been, not kept. The way in which a country, for example, the Prime Minister stood up and said, Kenya Anthony cannot make you safe. I will make you safe. Tim, since this government has taken over, just watch the number of homicides. Are we any safer in St. Lucia? The Prime Minister promised that. He promised that St. Lucians will not need visa to go to the United States. Do we still not need visas to go to the United States? I'm not even talking about the corruption and the lack of tendering. I'm just talking about, just comments that the Prime Minister said his first act would be to sign this memo and the price of gas will be going dong, dong, dong. It went up and has never come down since.
Okay, so your call. Good afternoon. This is Newsspin. You're on the air. Hello.
Good afternoon, Mr. Paul. You.
Hi, good afternoon to you, sir.
Yeah, question for Mr. Hilaire.
Go ahead, please.
If Donald Trump had done the atrocities that Kenya Anthony done, do you think he'd be president today? That's one question. A follow-up on a statement he made earlier about Stephen King is capable or should be next Prime Minister. I can recall that the then Prime Minister, Kenny Anthony, saying the next election is not SLP versus UWP, it's SLP versus the Shaft Days. Why the Shaft Days? Because he knows that's the only person that could beat him. He could beat him and think it would be an easy victory for him. That's what I think.
Thanks a lot.
And you know he cannot win nothing with the Shaft Days.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to discuss Kenny Anthony and whether it's only the Shastneys that can beat Kenny Anthony. I know Kenny Anthony won 3 of the last 5 elections in St. Lucia, and that tells you a lot. If a man can win 3 out of the last 5 elections in St. Lucia, you know, look at our political history, but I'm not sure the caller is probably aware of our political history judging on his accent. But his first comment about Trump, if the UWP's response now is to say that Kenny Anthony was worse than Trump, then Balfini, the lower sack.
Let's take a final call. All right, let's take the final comments from you, Dr. Hilaire.
Well, I call on all your listeners, on all St. Lucians, to tune in to Parliament next week, Tuesday. Listen to the case that will be made by the St. Lucia Labour Party examining the stewardship of Alan Shastney for the last 2.5 years. And I ask all St. Lucians to have an open mind, to listen to the points being made, listen to the arguments being put forward, and to judge for yourself. We are convinced that he's not worthy to be Prime Minister anymore. We know a large section of St. Lucia is also convinced of that. But I want all St. Lucians to sit, listen to the debate in Parliament next week, Tuesday, and for them to come to the conclusion on their own. We'll be putting forward our case. And it's up to the parliamentarians, especially on the other side, to stand up and to say to St. Lucians and to say to their constituents whether they support what Alan Shastney is doing as Prime Minister and they have confidence in him and they wish him to continue with what he's doing.
Dr. Ernest Hilaire, the MP for Castries South.